Now, this is our last contestant before the interval. So, next up, we have Blayze Millward. Blayze is studying artificial intelligence with computer science at the University of Sheffield, but he's currently on a work placement in Portsmouth, so very well travelled. He's like to be talking about artificial neural networks, indecision, and chocolate bars. And he's usually seen wearing 2 watches. Maybe he can't be decided about which one's better. And he likes to stare intently at computer monitors. His last talk he summarised as computers, and he thought very hard about this, at how to summarise it. Computers are good at maths. So hopefully his next talk he will be able to give a decidedly good performance on indecision. Let's welcome to the stage Blayze Millward.
So today I'm going to talk to you guys about artificial neural networks. Why? Because you've probably heard people talk about them and you might want to know some more. So let's imagine that I'm in a newsagent. So I'm trying to decide which of my 2 favourite chocolate bars to buy. I've got the Daily Milk and the Nebula bar. Remember, this thing's being live streamed. I don't want the trademarks people to kick down my door. Anyway, I, being a sensible, rational thinking person, decide to do the only thing that I can think of to do. To build a computer system to emulate a small part of my brain to make the decision for me. In retrospect, perhaps I'm not indecisive, just bad at making good decisions. Oh well. So, what I do is I build an artificial neuron. This is something that takes in a number of inputs. In this case, these things are properties of the chocolate bar that we're looking at. Things like the taste, the texture, the smell. And then it outputs them at the bottom. Beforehand, though, it multiplies them by this weight vector. Now, this weight vector is akin to me saying, actually, I care a lot more about the taste than I do the colour of the packaging. So I'm going to look at that more. Then it summizes them up and puts them through a function and then plops out the answer. Now, unfortunately, this sort of summation usually tends to result in like a linear line, which means it's not very good at doing anything advanced. So for that, we need another set of neurons. Now we've got a neural network, see? Now, this network takes as an input the answer from the previous one, which means it can think about things more abstractly, which is great because this is a fairly abstract question. I mean, have you ever thought about chocolate for a long time? We do this some more because, you know, we're complicated people and we need complicated answers. So, the big question for a computer scientist like myself is how do we learn these weight values? Because sort of floating numbers that float around. The answer, of course, is a Rocky Balboa style training montage. Yes? Okay, it's not actually that. What we do is we take the neural network and we run it through a load of tests that we know the answers to. And then we compare how wrong it got to how right it should have been. And we iterate this error back up the neural network, changing the weight slightly so it gets closer and closer to its correct answer. Do this a couple of million times and bam, you've got something that makes a decision for you. Now, in real life, these are used on things like voice recognition and all of those things. But of course, what actually happens is I end up stuck in a newsagent's, the shopkeeper's gone home, and I'm facing legal charges. So, yeah, at least you guys know a little bit more about neural networks as a result.
Blayze Millward, everybody! Woo! So, wonderful. So let's start with the questions. Who's going to start this time? Alison, you look primed with a question there.
So your chocolate decision-making machine didn't seem to take into account size, and I think that's a big problem.
Sadly, yes, that is a big problem. Fortunately, though, with computers, being computers, they're very good at doing lots of things with lots of other things. So it means that if we want to add a new variable, we just need a bigger graphics card, as is currently the case. Or, you know, a supercomputing cluster, but nobody wants to buy me one.
So, Blayze, I was talking with my students this week about artificial intelligence, and I was trying to explain how big a neural network would have to be so that it could do everything my brain could do. Watch out with your answer, but how big? I mean, will we make a neural network that can do what my brain... Yeah, thank you.
Well, this is a fantastic question, really it is, because there's something interesting that goes on with neural networks that we don't really quite understand compared to the real brain. Because we know that any sequence of more than, say, 2 layers of a neural network can actually emulate any possible function that you could possibly think of doing. And we know that for certain, but we don't know exactly how the brain does it. So we know that you, for instance, have, I think it's 40 billion neurons floating around there somewhere, at least 4 billion on the back of the eyes. So we generally tend to just try and mimic bits of the brain. We're not very good at making it do everything just yet.
So apart from choosing chocolate bars, what else do you use these for your decision making?
Yeah, well, as I said, you can use them in voice recognition. It's done a lot these days. So everybody noticed that about 4 or 5 years ago, voice recognition suddenly got really good on your phones. You know, you can walk down the street now and talk to it and it'll understand you. That's because of this sort of deep neural network suddenly came into the technological forefront. And we can suddenly, you know, take into account all of these variables without having to just compare it against known words.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Blayze.